all your dreams. Land is home on your own. Every day, no more way.
I think I'm live.
UNA University.
I'm not sure, but I think I'm live. Arborists Pros Tree Service. Welcome. Am I live? Am I live? Yes, 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 yes. UNA. Yeah, welcome, and welcome. I think I'm live. This is an open session. Now, we did an open session yesterday. And we had a little fun talking about food and the metabolism of the body, and how you have a community within your body that is your metabolism and all of that. And so that was a test. Today, we're getting into some heavy stuff, a little bit of a heavy topic. Talking about gold. All right. The topic here is the gold still in Fort Knox? I want to talk about that. I've been following this whole gold thing for over a decade now. About what I know, and I'm checking to see if I'm still running. But of course, you all know that, or some of you all know that there has not been anyone to do an audit on the so-called gold that's supposed to be in Fort Knox since in 70 years, over 70 years. So I'm going to go through this video courtesy of a channel called Andre Jikh, and it's called America's Missing Gold. Want to give props to him to make sure. Let me make sure we get his information properly established here. But we're going to go through this while we're getting this done. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I get his props. All right. So let me also just give a shout out to everybody in TikTok. Tony Hamilton, welcome. V Logos, welcome. Genesis Jen, welcome. Where's that song? Wait, oh, I think you sent it to me. I haven't had a chance to check it. We got Genesis is an awesome singer. All right. So she's working with me on a project, song, and would love to be excited about putting it out. So how do you give birth again without a man? Say it in idiots' terms. Okay, here you go, vlogs. Number one, eat right. Eat right. Okay, you got to do that. Number two, you're going to have to refrain from having intercourse. Are you sure you're ready for this? I wasn't talking about this today, vlogs. We're supposed to be going into gold and the money and where it is and the history of today's. Okay, but vlog want to come on here talking about some. I want to have children without. Okay, now the other thing, V, is that you gotta be willing to study who you are and know the nature of your vessel is. If you're a woman, I'm assuming you're a woman. You got to know what your vessel is. So it's going to take some mental discipline. It's going to take you being willing to let go of some things that society has told you, well, you got to have. Like they told you need food. Okay. They also told you got to have other things that you're going to have to be willing to let go of. All right. So it's going to take some discipline. It's going to take some sacrifice of some things that you have grown used to. All right. It's going to take a lot of knowledge, but I need you to understand we're getting there. You're going to see it happen very soon. Okay, now hope you found that information well. So let's get into the goal. Where is the goal? Where is it at? Okay, we're going to get into this now. I'm doing a reaction today. Once again, of this gentleman who has a website, and he was saying some things. He went through the history. And some of the things he said were on point, but then the way he's phrasing it is disturbing. So I really wanted to go through this because I'm not sure if this guy, he knows some of the information he's mixing up. Some of it he's misstating, and some of it he's speaking on it as though it's not real, even though he's backing up the facts with everything that he says. Okay, so we're going to go through this again. I hope you find this information well. Those of y'all who are looking for the UNA Beginner Law book, this has laws in it that you really need to know, which includes the universal laws, hierarchy of laws, maxims of law. You want to get that in this book. Also look up our membership packages that we have. Okay, and if you want the membership trust, find us at unauniversity.com. Okay. Oh, and we're going to send you, by the way, if you want to leave us an inbox, name, number, email. Name, number, email. Let's go. All right. So getting into this, this is Andre Jikh. All right. Jikh. We're going to do this courtesy of his channel. I want to give him a lot of respect and appreciation because he spoke on some things, but I got to break some other things down concerning this. Where is the gold? Let's do it. Give me 2 screens. Thank you all for joining, all 2 of y'all. All right, let's go. Please let this work.
The United States claims to have over 8,000 tons of gold. No one's actually seen that gold in decades. Now, supposedly these bars are stored in heavily guarded vaults, the most famous of which is the Fort Knox Bullion Depository in Kentucky, which alone holds about 4,580 tons, almost half of the country's gold. The rest is split between the U.S. Mint and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's vault. In total, the U.S. reserves have stayed at about 8,100 tons for decades, with only small changes. And the value of all this gold, or something called the book value, is set very specific price per ounce, totaling about $11 billion. But there's a problem. That price is way below today's market value. At recent market prices, this gold would be worth hundreds of billions of dollars.
All right, I want to stop it right there. Real quick. I want to look this up real quick, what the price of gold is. Because what he's basically saying is that they're valuing gold at the price of $42 when the true market value is $2,867. Okay, that's a big difference. All right. Now,
The U.S. gold reserve is a hugely valuable asset, even if its official accounting value hasn't been updated since the 1970s. But why? Surely the gold reserves are reviewed every year, right? Supposedly it should be. It isn't. And just recently, U.S. banks have been flying in thousands and thousands of gold bars from London to New York, sparking a lot of theories as to what is actually happening. So the question is, if we looked in there today, what would we find? Why doesn't the government just do an audit and tell us? And if it's missing, how would that affect ordinary people? It's one of the most interesting stories you're going to hear about, and that's what I want to share with you. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the gold. Now, gold is part of America's mythical lore, and throughout history, there have been rumors that the United States doesn't actually have the gold it says it does. But first I gotta ask, how did the US even end up with over 8,000 tons of gold? In 1933, during
The structure motorized pergola system is reinventing the way home.
All right, let me get through this commercial.
Great Depression, President Franklin Roosevelt ended the gold standard for U.S. citizens and ordered the confiscation of most privately held gold through Executive Order 6102.
Which is illegal, by the way. So basically what he's talking about is where this president had ordered that everyone in the country turn their gold over to the quote unquote government. And we're going to understand that there's a difference between the government and the United States corporation in a few minutes as he goes through here and speaks on what happened in the history.
Americans were required to turn in all their gold coins and all their bullion to the government in exchange for paper dollars. This was super controversial at the time, and it resulted in a huge inflow of gold to the U.S. Treasury. Now, to store it, Fort Knox Depository was built in 1936, and by 1937, there were trainloads of seized and stolen gold that were moved into these new vaults. Now, throws. Before World War II, the U.S. got even more gold from other countries to help them protect U.S. gold reserves peaked. By the end of 1941, Fort Knox alone held over 20,000 metric tons. Now, at that time, the U.S. controlled about 2/3 of the world's official gold, a concentration of wealth unlike any time in human history. And all of this happened because of decades of trade surpluses and the influx of gold from Europe, which it gave to the U.S. for safekeeping during World War II.
The influx of gold from Europe. All of these countries, Germany was one of them as well, if I'm not mistaken, sent over gold, their gold reserves, to put in this place called Fort Knox. Now, if you remember what he said earlier is that the U.S. Treasury was the one who received the gold. I need this to be made clear, and as I've talked to you guys before, there is a difference between the United States and the United States of America. Now, when we're talking about the United States of America, we're actually talking about the landmass that we know of as North America. But then when we're talking about the United States, we're talking about a corporation that is owned by Britain. And most people are clueless about this. When you vote for a president of the United States, you're voting for the president of a private corporation that's owned by Britain. All right, so Britain and London and all these other places, and they had sent gold here to be stored in this place called Fort Knox, which is in, by the way, Kentucky. That's going to be a major part of a question that I'm going to ask later on in this video.
And gold was seen as this huge part of the monetary system. And under the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement, the US dollar was directly attached to gold at $35 per ounce, and other countries linked their money to the dollar. America's huge pile of gold gave other countries confidence in the dollar's value. Then in the 1950s, the 1960s, and the post-war decades, everything started to reverse. The U.S. gold reserves started to go down, and America started to run what are called trade deficits. And it spent a lot of money on overseas commitments. The U.S. was sending money to countries left and right. And before long, countries started asking for their gold back in exchange for the dollars they had held, which was allowed at the time under the Bretton Woods Agreement. And systematically, gold flowed out of U.S. vaults to pay other countries. And U.S. holdings fell from the World War II peak, and by 1971, U.S. gold reserves were down to about the same level they are today. So what did the U.S. do?
Hold up. I need to back up on here and let's look at this this thing that he's showing. Now, you know, they'll show us images to represent something. And I need to say this. I'm going to go through this whole video. It's only about 19 minutes, but I need to say this because they're showing you this video like, oh yeah, it went up and peaked in 1940, then it came down, and then it did something, and then in 1970, it dropped back down to this. This is what they're showing you. But I need this to be made clear. The United States Corporation, as I said, is different between the United States of America. The United States Corporation is broke. It's bankrupt and has been bankrupt since 19 or 18, was it 1933? At least. They bankrupt before that. They bankrupt in 1871, but definitely in 1933, they were bankrupt. That's why you have this Hague Convention that they're hiding from you. You try to go and Google it, you'll be lucky to find it. But I have it. And there's a Hague Convention whereby they went bankrupt, and that's why the Hague had to step in to regulate them in the bankruptcy. So the United States Corporation is bankrupt. Why am I bringing that up? Well, you got a bankrupt company dealing with your money. That's like having somebody broke, giving somebody who's totally broke access to your bank account. So let me be clear on this. The United States Corporation is broke, but the people of the United States of America are not. Now, you might feel like it if you don't know what the truth is. But the fact is that the United States of America is not broke, but the United States Corporation is. And now you got the United States Corporation handling your funds. You got a broke person handling your financial situation. They're telling you that there's 8,134 tons, but there's no proof of that. This is just a representation, and I'm just making it clear that it's not real. All right, no more real than the claim that there is any gold in that place that we know of as Fort Knox. I'm gonna continue.
U.S. gold reserves were down to about the same level they are today. So what did the U.S. do? It was kind of a rug pull. President Richard Nixon closed the gold limit on August 15, 1971, ending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. This action broke the Bretton Woods Agreement, and it put the world on a pure fiat or paper currency standard. At that point, the United States decided to keep what was left of the gold rather than continue allowing people to redeem it.
Okay, I hope you heard what he just said. Instead of giving people their gold back, the United States Corporation, which is the United States, listen, I need to say this, a lot of people don't get this, even people who work with the so-called United States, whatever, they're not understanding that anything that is under .gov, it is not government. It's not truly federal. It's a United States corporate entity that's working with the federal government, but they're not federal. They're paid by the state. All right? Your truly federal government, they operate under a whole different domain. And so when he says, oh, the United States decided to keep it and not give people back their gold, No, what they're doing is just giving the federal these reserve notes so that the federal can give it to the people. We're going to continue, and I'm going to tell you what really happened that he doesn't talk about in this video.
So the next question is, if the US dollar is not backed by gold anymore, why does the Federal Reserve supposedly have so much gold still? And the truth is, it doesn't.
Here's how you generate high-quality working unit tests.
Directly own any of the country's gold since 1934, because all the federal gold was turned over to the Treasury. But the Fed doesn't have a clean.
Hold up. All of the federal gold was turned over to the Treasury. What he just said is that the federal side turned the people's gold over to the United States Corporation. So let's understand something that he's not stating. The federal is the United States of America. These are the people who are supposed to, by the way, let me go into what federal means. Federal means a covenant with God. All of these federal agents, they have to take an oath, and when they take an oath, it ends with, so help me God. All right. Their oath is that they've made a contract and an agreement with God to protect the people or protect God's property, which is the people. That's what federal means, a covenant with God, and their job is to protect God's property, which is the people. All right. So what has happened is the people were giving their gold to these banks, the first being the New York Federal Bank. All right. And they were putting their gold in these banks. Now, I need to go back a little bit because originally, before the Europeans came, and when I say Europeans, y'all don't start thinking light-skinned people. We talking about Moors, Tunis, Algiers, Tripoli, Montezuma, Britain. They were all, these melanated folks. All right, so they come in here, and the original trade was with IOU. So it's like, somebody does some work for you, and then, you give them an IOU, and they say, okay, you got to pay me this much. Well, what ended up happening is when these people found gold in this land, then they started stealing that gold. And then they would say things like, well, you know what? We don't want the paper money. Go ahead and pay us with gold. And you'll see movies, old movies or what have you, and it'll tell you exactly what they were doing. They would come in, they'd have the people working on their own land, bagging the money up, and then selling the money back to them, the gold back to them, and it was already theirs. Okay, so at any rate, the people started requesting that those who are working or what have you pay in gold. Well, gold became heavy. It became too heavy to be carrying around all this gold. So then these banks were developed. And when they started putting the monies in the bank said, yes, bring your money here. We'll hold it. And then we'll give you this paper notes. Then you can write based on how much gold you have in the bank. All right. So they were putting their fund or their gold into these federal banks. And so now it was the federal responsibility to hold on to the gold of the people. Well, then you got the United States Corporation, which Britain had already been in here working and doing their thing. But then when it came down to them getting their hands on the gold, they start doing these, negotiations behind the scene with these federal banks. Okay, so they're behind the scenes with these federal banks negotiating. Then they take the gold of the people. Let me say it like this. The federal bank gives or loans the gold to the United States Corporation. That's what they did. They quote unquote loaned it to these United States corporations. The United States Corporation never did give it back. So now, let's be clear, the federal government is responsible for making sure the people are intact. That's why when you talk about a social security number, that's an account, that's an estate, and it is federal. This is why if you Like I've seen people, they go, you know what? I got this credit loan, and then I just switched the number on the end of my social security number, and then I went to prison for years. Prison is a federal thing. Why did they go to prison? Why are they in federal prison? Because they tampered with a federal number. A social security number is federal. And what does that mean? That means that it belongs to you. You have rights to it when you learn how to claim it. All right. So it's the federal's responsibility to take care of you now, or to make sure that you get what you need, because they gave away your gold to the United States Corporation, which is Britain. Nobody's telling you that. He's not saying that because he doesn't even know. He just talking about, well, you know, they gave it to the federal and the United States Treasury. He doesn't even understand that the United States Treasury is not federal. All right. So this, I just want to make sure we're clear on that. The difference between federal and the United States Corporation and the Treasury, which is all over here with the United States Corporation. These people stole the money, or they borrowed it and never did give it back. So now the Fed is responsible because they gave the gold of the people away. And I ain't talking about no Albions. All the people, all of them, regardless of what their skin color was. All the people, especially the people who are the original people of this land.
On it in the form of a gold certificate issued by the Treasury. This gold certificate is recorded on the Fed's balance sheet, which is sort of like its portfolio of assets, which totals gold at about $11 billion. That represents the nation's entire official gold stock. So the Federal Reserve holds the certificate, and the physical gold stays in the Treasury's vaults. Now, even though the US dollar is no longer backed by gold reserves, there's still an important part of what gives the dollar its perceived value. Because ever since 1973, the gold has been fixed at this $42 per ounce rate, which totals $11 billion on paper. But in reality, the market's value is way higher. However, the Treasury does not do what's called mark-to-market the asset. And that's why any increase in gold's market price today is not reflected in their official accounts. So the question is, why hold all of that gold? And why the US has so much gold is because it's seen as a hedge against currency risk. Senator Rand Paul once said, gold still gives value to the dollar, and that's why we don't get rid of it.
Also, it brings attention to the fact that gold still has value, and implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly, gold still gives value to the dollar. That's why we don't get rid of it.
Pause. And let's be clear about what he just said and how much BS is in it. But he says, implicitly, gold gives value to the dollar. So because people believe there is gold in Fort Knox, then the dollar has value because that's what they believe, not because that's really what's going on, but that's what they believe. But then he goes on at the end of that thing and he says, that's why we don't get rid of it. Listen, is already gotten rid of. And that's my issue. He's trying to act like, well, we still have it. Yeah, we don't get rid of it. Again, they've got to give the visual of there being some gold there. But I say again to you, nobody has checked on this gold in over 70 years. And they have left the gold in the hands of a broke entity who clearly has no idea or understanding how to finance or budget. And you want to tell me that it's still there and they won't let anybody in to see it? Okay, we're going to keep going, and you're going to understand why I say it's BS.
So it's a symbol of stability carried over from the old era of monetary history. But here's what's interesting. If gold was marked to market and the price was raised from the $42 an ounce to the current market value, in theory, the Treasury could issue more gold certificates to the Fed in exchange for more dollars. And that's why people have pointed out that we should look at revaluing the US gold reserves to market prices so we could add hundreds of billions of dollars to the Treasury's assets. Because if the Treasury has more assets, it can use them to reduce the national debt and stabilize the economy. So then the question is, why don't we do that? And here's where we get into some really interesting theories. Even though the US government tells us that the gold is still there and it's still very safe, a lot of people don't believe the government. First of all, there's a lot.
First of all, it's not government. It's the U.S. corporation. And you shouldn't believe them because the only thing that their purpose is to take from the people. They are not government. They have a purpose, and that is to take from you what belongs to you. All right? When we're talking about the federal has a responsibility to give to you. But then the U.S. Corporation steps in, and then they're going to block that. That's why you got to pay taxes. If you knew how to go straight to the federal government, then you wouldn't be paying taxes. And so when you get somebody like Trump in, and again, I tell you, I'm not either side or the other because I didn't vote and I don't vote. I like to make that clear. I really don't care if you like it or don't like it. I'm just being clear. When somebody like Trump comes in and he starts looking into these things, people get upset with him. He's shaking it up. But if you understand what's really going on, he's trying to deal more with the federal side as opposed to the U.S. corporation. And he's really doing a lot of things that go against what their purpose is, and that is to continue to take from you. I need to keep going.
A lot of secrecy around all of this. You can't just visit Fort Knox and the other vaults to look at the gold. And that has fueled a lot of speculation that not everything is what it seems. Now, in the 1960s and 1970s, for example, several people claimed that most of Fort Knox's gold was secretly removed, with rumors even suggesting that President Lyndon B. Johnson shipped tons of U.S. gold to London during the late 1960s. Now, according
I want y'all to keep that in mind. Well, secret sources say that Lyndon B. Johnson shipped tons of gold to London. Keep that in mind, because it's going to come back up.
this theory, the U.S. gold stash,
And the fact that he keeps calling it a theory. And I got to say, because that whole term theory, it kind of triggers me a little bit because, people also conspiracy theory. And, we like to speak in facts over here. There's not a theory. We speak in facts. And so he keeps saying, it's the way he says things. It's like, we don't know where this guy is coming from. But he clearly is not clear on the difference between what a true government is versus what the United States corporation is. He wants to, the feds gave it to them. And then who is who then? What do you mean the feds and the United States government? What is this? He doesn't know. But I'm helping you to understand when we're talking about Fed and federal, that's really you. And they are for you. But the problem is you keep serving a corporation that is not for you. And people like him call this corporation a government when it's really not. But it's your government when you allow it to be. All right, let me carry on.
Might have been used or lent out without the public's knowledge. And Fort Knox.
It might have been lent out or used. And I'm sorry for those of y'all who are frustrated because I stopped the video. I'm going to stop it because I need to break this down. Let me go back.
Tons of U.S. gold to London during the late 1960s. Now, according to this theory, the U.S. gold stash might have been used or lent out without the public's knowledge, and Fort Knox became a giant empty shell guarded for show. Now, these claims actually captured the public's imagination, especially as the U.S. gold supply was really shrinking in the 1960s. Now, other people say that, no, actually, the U.S. has all the gold, but the gold in Fort Knox doesn't actually.
Oh, hi, I'm Eric Erheim. I run the world-famous Top 2 blog.
He just said they have all the gold. Is another theory. Oh, excuse me.
The U.S. has all the gold, But the gold in Fort Knox doesn't actually belong to the United States. Historically, Fort Knox safeguards the gold of other countries during World War II and the Cold War. Gold from European countries, for example, was stored in the U.S. to protect it from Nazi and Soviet threats. So maybe the U.S. does have the gold. It's just not ours. But according to official accounts of the government, almost all foreign-owned gold has long been moved out to the owning countries. Fort Knox today is supposed to be what's left of U.S.-owned deep storage gold. Other people believe the U.S. gold has been swapped or loaned out secretly. But U.S. officials have denied these claims, saying that none of the Treasury's gold is encumbered with any loans or swaps. And some people believe that some of the gold bars in official reserves are maybe even counterfeit, gold-plated bars of tungsten or other metals. Tungsten almost has an identical density of gold, making it possible to create a bar that passes a weight test but isn't pure gold. This theory actually gained traction from an unverified 2009 report claiming China received a batch of gold bars that turned out to be fakes. Now that report was never confirmed, and Fort Knox has them.
Even Fort Knox has them. All right, I need to start right here because he's speaking again. It's that whole what's a theory? It's not proved. It's mythical. Let me be clear on this. Just because something is quote unquote mythical doesn't mean it's a lie. Now, I personally read an article similar to what he's talking about. And shortly after I read it, all of these documents were scrubbed from the internet. This was around the time when Clinton was in office. So I got to go back to this. The United States is in debt and has no ability to budget properly. So these people, United States Corporation, not the United States of America, because the people are not in debt, but the United States Corporation is, and they are in debt to China. Now, China, by the way, they've been selling, if you got a mortgage, even a car, that all of these instruments, when you go sign them, they sell those things off to China and other countries that want to be in on the assets of the United States. This is why you don't want to register anything under the United States, because they're getting money off of when you register your marriage, your child, when you register your car, your home, all of that stuff. They're selling those financial instruments to other countries. And so what happens is now they start to own your house and your car. All right. So what happens is they gotten into debt to China. So now they're sending China these Federal Reserve notes, and China's like, this is garbage, because we know that y'all really don't. I tell you what, just pay us in gold. We don't want your Federal Reserve notes, because it's not really valuable to us. We want gold. And so they started sending gold bars over to China. Well, China, for some reason, got the notion that we need to drill these bars because we're not sure if these are real gold bars. So they started drilling the bars and found out the United States was sending them fake gold. Well, this guy wants to act like, well, you know, what's the theory? Of course, that's what they're going to tell you, and then they're going to scrub it from the internet so people like him can come on and say, well, you know, it's the mythological. No, that's what happened. They got into debt because that's what they do, and then they start sending fake gold over to China. Well, if you got the real gold, why not just give them the real gold? Because you really don't even have that because you've traded it away. Okay, let me carry on.
It was such a big theory that Congressman Ron Paul publicly questioned whether Fort Knox gold bars are authentic or if some of them might be these gold-plated tungsten bricks. And during the 2008 financial crisis, people believed the U.S. might have quietly sold or leased out some of its gold to suppress prices or raise cash. But okay, hold on. If some people believe this stuff and it's supposedly not true, why doesn't the government just do an audit and tell us what's really going on? And the answer is complicated. Officials claim the gold is audited, but there has never been a comprehensive, up-to-date audit that has ever been publicly released. But here's what we do know. When President Dwight Eisenhower took office in 1953, rumors were circulating that some Fort Knox gold has been used to pay wartime bills. And in response, a group of auditors conducted a limited inspection of the gold. And this is cited as the last full audit of the U.S. gold, which happened over 70 years ago. Although it also wasn't super detailed by modern standards either. Reports say that it was essentially a spot check of about 5 to 7% of the gold bars. And the auditors didn't actually count or test every bar, but they sampled enough to say that at that time, the gold appeared to be in order.
Okay, I need to go into this because at that time when they did that little spot check, let's talk about what these people do. All right, so there are 3 main facilities that'll have gold in them, and so when these auditors were coming in to check, they were okay. They coming. Yo, get all the stuff out them other 2 and move it over there to that one. Okay, and they're going to be over there in a few minutes. Okay, so we're going to let them in. Don't let us know when you got them packed up. So then they stack them up in this one over here. Let's say it's Fort Knox. And then the auditors go over there to Fort Knox and they count up some of them. And they didn't even check the serial numbers. They just counted. Okay, we got this many. And we got to go to the next place. And they say, okay. Y'all move the gold from there and go over to the other place because they coming, all right? So they move the gold from this Fort Knox and take it to the other place. And then the auditors go over there and then count the gold, which is the same gold that was in the other place they just came from. And then they do the same thing with the third place. And then it's like, okay, we good. They got gold. They're just shuffling the same gold around. So they don't know what they counting. And if they're not counting all of the 3 different locations at the same time, you don't know what you have. And so I need to speak on this before he gets to the end here. And then I'll rephrase it or reiterate it later. But when you're talking about these people selling gold on the stock market, and you invest in some gold on the stock market, let me be clear. If you don't have that gold bar in your pocket, you ain't got nothing. Nothing. Because anything you're bidding on or gambling on concerning anything in Fort Knox or any other place talking about they got gold is not real. What they call that's called that fool's gold. So you are investing in it or gambling on it or putting some money on this stock and dividends and derivatives and all this other mess. You got nothing. Because these people will sell gold that they don't have. That's the problem with what they're doing. And you're going to find out more about it in a second.
Well, the 1950s were like, okay, cool. Then, in the 1970s, the U.S. economy started to struggle. High inflation, the oil shock, and the country had come off the gold standard. So the question about gold started to be asked again. Where is the gold? In 1974, a Washington attorney published a book claiming $20 billion worth of gold was missing from Fort Knox, and that story became really popular. So to silence the doubters, the Treasury decided to put on a show to prove everybody wrong. On September 23, 1974, the Fort Knox vault was opened to 100 congressmen and news media. It was the first look inside for outsiders in a long time. Now, the visitors were shown stacks of gold bars, and they were even allowed to hold some of these bars for photos. One radio reporter said, "All I can say is that I saw gold in there."
This was a photo op, nothing more. a photo op.
Now, this event is sometimes mistakenly referred to as an audit, but in reality, no thorough audit was done during that visit because the tour lasted only a couple of hours, only one vault room was open for viewing, no bars were tested or weighed, and serial numbers were not checked against the records. It was basically a PR move by the government. Then, in 1974, the U.S. Treasury and the General Accounting Office made a more systematic audit program. And from 1975 to 1981, there was a series of yearly audits on portions of the gold with oversight by the General Accounting Office and the U.S. Mint. Now, those audits involved opening the vaults, counting bars, and testing random samples for purity. By 1981, they reported that there were no discrepancies that were found between the recorded and the actual numbers of gold in storage. But this, too, was not a 100% audit. The last report noted that about 212.7 million troy ounces had been verified, which represents roughly 80% of the total U.S.-owned gold. And in terms of gold bars, they had checked only 21% of the gold bars by serial number. After 1981, though, the audit stopped. And since the 1980s, according to the U.S. Mint and U.S. Treasury, the gold is inventoried and audited regularly on the basis of trust me, bro. Now, the details of those audits, of course, are not told to the public. That is until 2017. That's when Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin made a publicized trip to Fort Knox, along with Senator Mitch McConnell and a few other officials. And this was the first time that a sitting Treasury had visited Fort Knox since 1948. After the visit, Mnuchin said, "Glad the gold is there." Unfortunately, one visit by government insiders is still not an actual audit. And that brings us to today. One of the biggest reasons why people are talking about gold again is because of the trade war and reports that banks are flying over 8,000 gold bars, about 2% of the total, out of London and into the U.S. And some people think that this absolutely confirms that the U.S. is out of gold.
Okay. Why would this be considered a confirmation that the U.S. is out of gold? Well, let me pull this up here. All right. So again, I'm not sure where this guy is coming from as far as where his stance is on it. I'm not sure if he's trying to gaslight, because really he's kind of all over the place with respect to what he's saying. But here's the deal. This is the distance between Kentucky and New York, which is where they're saying the gold is in the vault. That vault is supposed to be down here in Kentucky. Fort Knox is supposed to be down here in Kentucky. This is the distance here, which is what they say, 11 hours and 17 minutes to get between, if you're driving. That's if you're driving. That's by car. By plane, we got a different thing. Okay. Which is 2 hours. It should be like 2-3 hours maybe. At the most, 4 or 5. Okay. Now, if we're talking about to get from London to the United States, look at this distance. And I don't even think they fly this way. That's another story. I'm not going into it. But let's pretend like this is the route coming from London. Look at the distance that you have to travel. Why not just take it from Kentucky if it's in Kentucky? What sense does it make for you to tell me, oh no, we got gold in Kentucky and the Fort Knox, they really do have. Remember that little image they showed you? We're talking about, it's been a steady amount of gold in Fort Knox. Remember that image? If they had that much gold in Fort Knox, why in the ham sandwich are you going to go flying it from all the way from London if it's in Kentucky? It doesn't make sense. So he's verifying and validating and fully believing that they are flying all of this gold, and all this movement of gold is now happening coming from London, which all of these stories he wants to make seem like they were theories When they said no, they flew all that gold over to London. And now he's telling you, no, I do believe that they are flying gold from London back into the US to go into New York. He's not making sense. I don't know, again, if he's trying to gaslight or if he's believing. I don't know where he's standing, but the things that he's saying are kind of, interesting in the way he's putting it. All right, let's get back on it.
But the real reason is actually something else. It's a banking strategy called arbitrage, and here is how it works. Right now, JP Morgan and HSBC are literally flying gold bars across the ocean from London to New York. And they're doing that because they're trying to fix their short positions and make some extra cash while they're doing it. That's because right now, gold is more expensive in New York than it is in London by about $20 per ounce. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're dealing with billions of dollars of gold, it adds up really fast. JP Morgan and HSBC are what's called gold market makers, meaning they help move gold around the world and they provide liquidity to buyers and sellers. And part of their business plan is gold leasing, where they lend out physical gold to other banks, investors, and institutions. In return, they earn an interest on these loans. But here's the catch. When they lease the gold out, they hedge their risk by selling gold futures in New York. In simple terms, betting on gold price is stable, so they don't take on unnecessary risk. Something went wrong.
Yeah, what went wrong is that garbage explanation you just gave. That's what went wrong. Because if you're telling me, well, it's more expensive in London than it is in New York, or it is in what? Still, they don't know the difference between gold bars and gold bars. They're not going to be checking the numbers. So why not? That's what he just said. They rent the gold out to different places. So just take it from Kentucky and then just tell them it's from London. They do it all the time. They lie all the time. Do the same thing you've been doing. Okay, yeah, this is from London. This is that London gold. You want some of this? It's more valuable than the gold. So just take this gold and then you can keep that. If that's really what was going on, but here's the deal. That's not really what's going on. What's really going on is that there is no gold in Kentucky in Fort Knox, so they got to go get it from London. They got to bring it back. They stole it in the first place. And here, I want to say Bush, Trump is saying, hey, I need to see it. Now, I need to say something about what Trump is doing, because Trump knows, he's intelligent. This guy not dumb. He's been here longer than I have in knowing about this whole Fort Knox thing. He's been here. He knows it. He's been in office. He knows than Sam Hamage well, there is no gold in Fort Knox. If he wanted to really catch them with their pants down, he would have just gone to Fort Knox. But you know why he didn't? Because he was sending a message when he says, all right, we're going to go visit Fort Knox on such and such a day. He's getting them. He's like, look, you better bring that money back. You better put that gold back in that place, because I'm ready to come up in there and I'm bringing a camera crew. So I'm letting you all know, you better put the gold back, or it's going to be some problems, because I'm going to let the American people come at you. So that's what's happening. He's giving them the alert that, hey, I'm ready to come up in there with a camera crew. You better put the gold back. And that's why they rushing to bring that gold back. It's arbitrage. This guy's all excited about his little arbitrage. It's arbitrage. Now, what you talking about, sir? What's happening is that they're trying to get back in order, because they know that the cameras get ready to shine up in that place they call Fort Knox. And if they come up in there and that gold is not there, it's going to be some problems. So this is why, because if Trump was just serious about catching them with their pants down, he just would have walked up in there and not said a word. But no, he's putting them on alert. Y'all better put it back. You better get it back, and you better get it back fast. So if it was already in there, there wouldn't have been all of this whole movement of gold, and we got to get it together, and we got to fly it back in from London. If it's already there, ain't no flying. He talking about this arbitrage. Oh, it's arbitrage. Be quiet, dude. Forgive me, because when somebody tries to gaslight me, it's annoying, and I got to call it out. So it's not about no arbitrage. What it's about is Trump has put them on alert. And if you don't get that gold back in there, it's going to be some problems. All right, let me finish this up.
There was geopolitical tension and uncertainty, especially around Trump's new tariffs. So gold prices in New York went up more than they did in London. That means the bank's short positions, or their gold futures bets, are now losing money. So to stop bleeding cash, they're physically moving gold from London to New York so they can settle their futures contracts and close their short positions without taking on huge losses. This is called arbitrage. By shipping physical gold to New York, they can sell it at a higher price. Then they can use that money to cover their short positions and maybe pocket some of the difference. JP Morgan alone is reportedly moving over $4 billion worth of gold across the Atlantic this month. That's what they're really doing. It's not necessarily some giant cover-up for Fort Knox. But even that explanation by itself is just not good enough. Even Elon thinks we should audit Fort Knox. He's openly suggested live streaming the vaults because, let's be honest, who wouldn't want to see what's inside of there? So why won't the government just do it? Is it really about security, or are they trying to hide something? What's most interesting to me is that there's always been this duality of what we're told. Economists like Barry Eichengreen and central bankers say that the Fed and Treasury have no incentive to lie to us about the gold. Doing so would be a huge scandal with very little benefit. Personally, I kind of disagree with that. I think there's a lot of incentive to not be truthful. On one hand, you have officials telling us that everything is going well, the audits have checked out. Now, the other hand, you have Elon tweeting, and it's gone. So people don't really know what to believe. So it makes sense why so many people are skeptical. We're supposed to believe that some huge amount of treasure that is never seen, never audited in full public view, is not somehow tampered with and is still
not somehow tampered with by people who are broke and have the inability to manage money properly. Yeah, it's gone.
There. The funny thing is, the government can answer 99% of these suspicions by conducting a public bar-by-bar audit with independent observers. So far, it's chosen not to do that, and instead, it's chosen to invite government insiders to verify their claims. And maybe they feel that it's due to cost or security, or they feel it's unnecessary. Whatever their reason is, the truth is, we don't actually know if the gold is still there or not. The fact that we don't know.
We know. We know. This is what's aggravating to me. Stop gaslighting. You don't have to fly all of those bars of gold over here from another country if it's already here. Use what you got here. They can't because it doesn't exist here. It's gone. So stop talking about we don't know. We know.
No is a problem in itself. If it turned out the U.S. gold was missing, it could trigger a huge global panic. The dollar's credibility would collapse, inflation could spiral, and countries might start demanding gold-backed currencies again. It could be one of the biggest financial crises in history, which is
okay. And that is a true point too. It could be a trigger. And let me make this clear, it's already happening. But as I've said before, once the people really start to awaken and they're willing to know what's really going on, you're not going to have an issue. For those of you all who are willing to listen and know law and understand the game, it doesn't matter what currency comes up. It doesn't matter what happens. with these other people, you are going to be better than great. As a matter of fact, you're going to, they call it a transfer of wealth. That is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to transfer to the people who have chosen to educate themselves. And those of y'all who choose, oh, I don't want to know about that, it's too, okay, fine, I'm not talking to you. But for those of y'all who want to know, get welcome, get ready, and welcome to your wealth. All right, let's go. I'm finishing this up.
Is why I think we should demand an answer.
The goal is either
there or it isn't. And it's time we find out. For now, there's no any
Gaslighter. Yes, there is.
to it still being there, safe and sound, and maybe Elon Musk will someday live stream.
That's another gaslight. All signs point to that it's not being there. And I don't know where he's coming with all signs. What signs are you talking about? Are you talking about the sign that when Trump made these people aware that he's getting ready to check on that gold? Are you talking about that sign when they start all this gold movement across the waters? Is that a sign? Is it a sign the fact that they haven't checked on it in 70 years? Is it a sign the fact that the people who are over the gold that nobody has seen for 70 years are known for mishandling money and funds and being in debt and are in bankruptcy? What are you talking about? All signs point to it being there. Don't know signs. I don't know not one sign other than that little graphic that you showed, which is a lie. Again, it's the gaslight that annoys me. And maybe he needs to do that for the other people who really don't want to know and want to stay asleep. I get it. But for those of y'all who want to be awake, don't listen to this gaslighter, because all signs point to is not there.
And show us all of that, but would we really know what we're looking at if he did? I know I wouldn't. And now we're back to the beginning. It's not a full audit, right? I didn't get to lick the gold bars myself, but you know what actually fixes this? So I guess we'll see what happens. As always, I'd love...
So he says, you know what fixes this, and then he rolls...
know what actually fixes this? So I guess we'll...
I couldn't catch it fast enough, but let me see if I can catch it. So he shows a Bitcoin. It's fast.
So I guess we'll see what happens.
All right, he shows a Bitcoin, and I say to you 100% blockchain. And one day I'm going to go in on the fact that the blockchain is going to be your real government. That's going to be, you're not understanding, and we're not understanding just how much power there is in a blockchain. All right. So when we're talking about this new technology and the blockchain and what it really is, and everybody's thinking gold and silver, no, that's the real money, when it's really not. You want to know what the real money is? It's the energy, it's the spiritual, it's you. You are. All the money, where's it come from? Right here. That's where money starts, right here. Everybody think, oh, it's gold and silver, but no. That's not the real. I won't go into it today. But when you understand what the real currency is, you'll understand why a Bitcoin that doesn't exist has more value than this gold that we were just talking about. One Bitcoin has more value than one of these blocks of gold that we're talking about. Okay? And you can look, hold on, I'm not even going to leave here but without looking this up. Hold on. Give me a second. We here, let's do it. All right. And then eventually I will speak on Bitcoin. So we know gold is worth $2,800 some odd dollars. Bitcoin, one Bitcoin that doesn't exist is worth $85,476. Okay? Cryptocurrency is really the blockchain that has the value, not so much the currency, because you can have different currencies. You've got Bitcoin, you've got this other Ethereum and all other kind of coins, but it's that blockchain that it runs on. That's the government right there. And we don't even see it or get it. We don't understand why they are tripping over themselves to get access and regulate this thing that we know of as the blockchain. They tripping over it because it has so much power. Y'all just think about the money, but I'm going to show you where the power is. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I want y'all to know I love you. Diva Laree, remember, when you are willing to uplift yourself and gain knowledge, it doesn't matter what kind of currency they decide they want to run today, tomorrow, the next day, you're going to always be taken care of because you know where the real money is. Diva Laree, I want y'all to know I love you. I'm out of here. We're going to see y'all next week. Peace. And bye-bye. Give me a hug. Bye-bye.